So in order to get to those important parts of parabolas and circles, you need to make sure the equation looks right. It's got to have those parentheses and equal the right number. So given equations, we need to identify if it's a circle or parabola and find the important parts. So parabolas only have one of their variables squared, and circles have both their variables squared. So that's your clue as to which one's which. So for this one, I'm going to put, the first thing I do is recognize that it's a circle because both the variables are squared. I'm going to put the like variables together and move the numbers across the equal sign. So I'm going to put my x's with my x's. If I can put y's together, I will, and I'm going to move the 7 to the other side. So when I rewrite it, I get x squared minus 8, and then plus y squared, and then equals negative 7. Then I'm going to complete the square. So this is the long way of doing it, where we said, okay, well, half of 8 squared is 16. So if I add 16 here, I need to remember to add 16 here, and that drops us down to x minus 4 squared plus y squared equals 9. Well, that's the problem that we can see the center is positive 4, 0, and the radius is just the square root of that 9, which is 3. Okay, so here's another example. The first thing I'm going to do is rearrange where my x's are together and my y's are together, and I'm going to move the negative 3 to the other side, making it positive. All right, I'm going to complete the square. So half of 4 squared is 4. If I add it here, I add it there. Half of 6 is negative 3 squared is 9. If I add it here, I add it there. So this is the same thing as x plus 2 squared. This is the same thing as y minus 3 squared. This is where before we were doing the step, we were going from standard to vertex form in parabolas. We were taking it and just saying, okay, from this point, it's x plus half of that. And then saying 2 squared is 4, so I'm going to add it over there. And then half of negative 6 is negative 3. 3 squared is 9. I'm going to add it up there. If you can do that, then that's totally fine. So the center here is going to be at negative 2, positive 3, and your radius is at 4. So here's another one. So I've got 2x squared plus 2y squared minus 16x plus 4y plus 20 equals 0. Grouping my x together, group my y's together, get my negative 20. I'm going to undistribute the number in front. All right, here's that shortcut that we used to do where we say, okay, half of 8 is negative 4. 4 squared is 16 times 2 is 32. I'm going to add that up here. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to put that up here. So negative 20 plus 32 plus 2 is 14. I see that there's a 2 times everything. This is even, and both of those are divisible by 2. So I'm dividing everything by 2. And the center, or the circle equation is x minus 4 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 7. So my center is at 4, negative 1, and my radius is the square root of 7. So parabolas, all right, the main difference is that you're going to want the squared term on the left and the non-squared term on the right. So we know this is a parabola because only one of the variables is squared. It's the x that's squared, so I'm going to leave that on the left side with any other x's. I'm going to get rid of anything y or just numbers. So I'm going to subtract the 8 and the 17 from both sides, and I get x squared plus 2x equals negative 8y minus 17. Here's that complete the square. So half of 2 is 1 squared is plus 1, so if I add it over here, I need to add it over there. So this side is done when I go from this step to this one. So again, you could have thought of it as half of 2 is 1, so 1 squared is 1, so if I just add it onto this side. All right, on this side I get negative 8y minus 16. Well, both of these numbers are divisible by negative 8, so I'm going to factor it out. And I get x plus 1 squared equals negative 8 times y plus 2. So now we have the important parts to look for. I have my vertexes at negative 1, negative 2. I know my p is negative 2 because negative 8 divided by 4. So for my focus, I add to the non-squared one. So let's see, the x is squared, meaning I can mess with my y's. So the negative 1 is going to stay from the vertex down to the focus. I'm going to take negative 2 plus negative 2, and that's negative 4. For my directrix, I write the letter y, which was the term that's not messed with. And then I go negative 2 minus negative 2. So it's minus the p, and that equals 0. So just another example, I'm going to put my y's together on the left side because it's the y value that's squared. I'm going to move my x's to the right side. Then I'm going to complete the square. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. If I add it to this side, I add it to that side. We've got to keep it balanced. So this breaks down into again, if you want to do the shortcut, half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9, so that's why I added it. So over here I have y plus 3 squared equals, and then the 9's canceled out, leaving me with just 2x. So my vertex is at the point 0, because nothing's being added to it, negative 3. My focus, well, p is 2 divided by 4, which is just 1/2. So my x is the one that I am going to mess with because my y is the squared term. So I go ahead and bring down the negative 3. I'm going to take my focus is 0 plus 1/2, which is just 1/2. My directrix is 0 minus 1/2, which is just negative 1/2. So x equals negative 1/2 is the directrix for that graph. So the last thing that you're going to need to remember for some of the problems is the distance formula. You guys have done the distance formula before, right? The distance from the center of a circle to any point on the radius is, the distance from the center of a circle to any point on the circle is the radius. So an example problem would be write an equation for a circle with a center at negative 2, 4 that has negative 1, or 1, 1 as a point on the circle. So you can start this by just filling in the blanks. We have x add something squared plus y add something squared equals, and we don't know. So we can use the distance formula, which is the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Since the equation uses the radius, you don't have to write, uses radius squared, right? This number down here is your radius squared. I don't even have to write the square root sign. So I'm just going to plug in my 2 points. So 1 minus negative 2 squared, 1 minus 4 squared. So 3 squared plus 3 squared equals 9 plus 9, which just equals 18. I don't have to put it under the radical or do anything with it, and then I'll just go in and fill in the blanks. So my center is at negative 2, 2, so this becomes plus 2, and this becomes, 4, minus 4, and then my radius squared is 18. I just plug it in, and then I'm done.